nobody else was doing. So I got to have them at the table. Yeah, me too. Community health.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, yeah, I know what
Yeah,
you're talking about. I can't think of the name.
Yeah, they came to talk to me and came from me and they said intervention and counseling. Then they
Yeah.
come from after school program, they add that.
Oh,
Come to them.
Right.
Yeah. Like a
they have that.
Good afternoon. I would like to call to order today, May 11th, our special called City Board of Directors meeting. We would like to welcome those that are in attendance as well as those that are watching online. Would also like to give a special welcome to Director Irma Hendricks. This is her first meeting since the pandemic in person. Good having you. Really good to see you in person, Director Hendricks. And Director Hendricks, I think I can hear you a little bit better now that you're this close to me. Yes, ma'am. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Director Hendricks, Director Richardson,
Here.
Director Webb,
Here.
Director Peck,
Here.
Director Wright,
Here.
Director Wyrick, here, Director Compuris, Director Phillips,
Here.
Director Adcock, present, Vice Mayor Hines,
Present.
Mayor Scott.
Present. Director Doris Wright, if you would, please give us the invocation.
May we bow our heads, please. Most gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for the privilege and the opportunity to serve the people of the city of Little Rock. We pray for those who are in attendance. We pray for those who are not in attendance. And we pray for our men and women on the front line, especially our uniformed officers and firemen. And Father Yah, we lift up this board of directors to you. And we pray that every decision that we make, that it will be decent and in order for the people. I pray in your Son, Yeshua, Jesus the Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Before we get started, I'm sorry. I apologize. Apologize. I stand for pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag. The republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get started, I want to take this time. I know we have a few officers that are here, as well as Chief Humphrey, to recognize the men and women of the Little Rock Police Department. It is Police Officers Week and Peace Memorial Week as well, where we take time to recognize those officers that have transitioned in the line of duty. And so, if we would, let's take a moment of silence. Thank you, and we do appreciate the men and women of the Little Rock Police Department, as well as the families. Madam Clerk, would you please read item 1 for the third and final time?
An ordinance to call a special election in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas for July 13th, 2021 on the question to levy a 1% sales and use tax within the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, to provide that the levy shall commence on January 1st, 2022, to prescribe other matters that pertain to the election, to declare an emergency and for other purposes, third and final reading.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have 6 agenda item cards. Ms. Allie Washington. Director Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a motion.
Will not entertain a motion.
Order.
Will not entertain a motion this moment. We're going to let the people speak, and then.
Moved
we'll-
over, Chair, Mayor.
I have a motion to lay item 1 on the table.
Second.
Point of order.
Again, I haven't entertained any motion. I want to make sure we're clear, everyone. We're going to let the people speak, but we do have a point of order.
Well, I was gonna say, if you're not entertaining the motion, then no need for the point of order. Withdraw.
Privileged motion above all others.
Can you talk to the mic, Mr. Carpenter?
The member said that they have made a motion to table, to lay upon the table for a period of time. I didn't catch the period of time. That takes precedence over everything else.
Mr. Parliamentarian, appropriate parliamentarian procedure is because the chair did not entertain a motion,
Mayor, you don't have that right. This is a
And-
motion from a
and
member.
Director Hines made a motion to overrule. He has to first vote to overrule the chair.
Okay.
So, Ms. Allie Washington,
Mayor, this is not proper.
allowing the
You've got to take-
people
You've
to
got to
speak.
take a vote to overrule the chair. It's been made. There was a second, and if there are 6 votes.
Is there a motion to overrule the chair?
So moved.
There's a motion and a second.
Point of order.
Now there's a point of order. Thank you.
Mr. Parliamentary, my understanding of the parliamentary rules, that a motion, to lay something on the table after it's been read 3 times is an improper move to kill the motion. So I would like for you to speak on that, to inform our chairman of what the proper things to happen here is. Thank you.
Typically, the motion to lay on the table is for a definite time period. I said just a second ago that I didn't hear the time period.
So that means it's improper, correct?
No, it means that I'm partially deaf.
Point of
But-
order.
Well, there was not a time period. You're not, that's not because you're deaf. There was no time period was stated.
I would have to look to the person who made the motion.
Point of order, Mayor.
You're leading the witness, Tom.
Point of order. Mayor.
Asking for the truth?
I had a point of order that hasn't been addressed yet. My point of order, Mr. Parliamentarian, is if there's a motion made to lay something on the table after there have been 3 readings, and you did not hear for an indefinite time, that makes the motion improper. Is that correct or not, Mr. Parliamentarian?
That's not correct because.
Okay,
there
why
were
is that
multiple
incorrect?
There were multiple parties talking, and as I said, I couldn't hear the end of the motion. I did hear a second to the motion. The Robert's Rules of Order strictly says that you can put something and lay it on the table indefinitely, and that is a means to kill something and not have it brought up. But Robert's Rules of Order applies in Arkansas if there is no rule or statute that is contrary to it. And the ordinances of the city suggest that the desire to cut off all debate is not favored, so we don't have really anything to lay on the table indefinitely, and there's always been a need for a date certain.
If I understood you correctly, you said that's not favored, so that means it's improper. Am I understanding you correctly, Mr. Parliamentarian? Am I understanding you correctly, Mr. Parliamentarian?
Since it's not favorable, Ms. Ally Washington.
But you still have the motion
Point of order, Mayor.
on the vote to overrule the ruling of the chair.
Parliamentarian, we've just shared the Robert Rules of Order. You can't.
No,
Undo
that
the
had
vote.
nothing to do with the motion to overrule the ruling of the chair to go to the public when there's been a motion put on the table and seconded.
Well, Mayor, not to do any lawyering here, we'll let Director Phillips and Tom do that. But if I heard correctly, that the motion that was made didn't have a time allocated, wasn't time specific. So what are you seconding? If there wasn't a clear understanding of the time frame that the motion covered, what are you seconding with respect to the motion that was made? And I'll let Tom and Antoine do the lawyering, but I don't know how we can second something that wasn't clearly defined.
And Vice Mayor Hines and Director Webb, we're still on the first point of order. That's the reason why we haven't come to you yet. There's still a discussion between the parliamentarian and the person who gave the first point of order. So I just want to make sure, I do see that your hands are up, but we have to address the first point of order.
The comment I made earlier, Mayor, is that I didn't hear because of multiple voices, the end of the motion. I don't know if there was time. I can't rule on whether it was proper or not until I know what the motion.
Well, in response to that, Mr. Parliamentarian, I can hear very well. There was no time given. And I think you're leading the witness so they can make a motion with a time. There was no, I mean, we need to
I
run.
don't think
we-
I have
we-
ever
can I finish?
suggested that somebody.
Allow me to
changed the
finish.
Mr.
truth.
Parliamentarian,
Allow me to
Director
finish.
Phillips is speaking.
If we need to, all this is being recorded, so we need to take a recess and watch the first minute of this meeting. We can do that. There was no time given. And you said that it's not favored. If it's not favored, it's improper.
Right.
That means,
And you just said that's right.
so then we're done.
Thank you. Ms. Ally Washington.
Point of order, Mayor.
Ms. Ally Washington, will you
Point
please
of
go,
order,
please
Mayor.
go for it, Ms. Ally Washington.
Point of order takes
Mayor.
precedence over other things.
All right. Director Hines?
My point of order is this. Director Webb made a motion, the chair chose to ignore the motion, and therefore it was not a valid motion. I made the motion to overrule the chair and got a second. That is the point of order and procedure of business we're on. There is not a valid motion from Director Webb because the chair did not recognize it. I moved to overrule the chair to allow Director Webb to make a motion. That is the proper order if you go back to the tape.
Let's just take a recess.
We have, Mayor, I request a ruling from the parliamentarian on that.
Parliamentarian obviously can't hear, so. It's really not.
The concept of a motion to overrule the ruling of the chair is an appropriate motion that should proceed to a vote without.
We can't hear you, Mr. Carpenter.
It's me, huh? Okay, the motion to proceed to overrule the ruling of the chair is something that proceeds to a vote without debate. It takes a majority.
I guess we're all having hearing problems because when Director Webb made the motion without a specific
Point of order,
timeframe,
Mayor, the parliamentarian
I
has
heard
ruled.
that.
Why don't you let Director Webb say what she said instead of everybody saying it for her?
I'm just saying, Joan, that I.
Point of order,
I
Mayor,
heard-
point of order,
I
point of
heard the
order.
Mayor, Vice
Director
Mayor
Hines.
Hines
This is out of order.
seconded.
Director Hines, Mr. Parliamentarian.
When you have a motion to overrule the chair, it's not debatable. You're supposed to move to the vote. Takes a majority.
What was?
Motion to overrule the chair is not recognizing the motion of Director Webb.
And that being said, there's no motion.
Well, that's your ruling, and that's what the motion to overturn the ruling is. It would take a majority vote.
The point of the matter is, there's no motion on the table. There was a point of order to overrule the chair. There's still no motion on the table. That's the reason why we're proceeding with letting the people of Little Rock speak. There has not been a motion on the table.
We are
That's the
still
point.
out of order, Mayor. That is still out of order.
What is the order?
The parliamentarian has ruled that you must recognize my motion to overrule the chair as it caught a second, I think Director Adcock, and therefore we should proceed to a vote on whether or not to overrule your motion to ignore Director Webb's motion.
Director Hines, we did have a vote of overruling the chair.
No, we did not,
We did not.
Your Honor.
We-
Mayor, we did not have a vote.
Mr. Parliamentarian,
I didn't, there was no vote on that motion.
what was the vote on when we took a vote?
There was no vote.
I said all those in favor to overrule the chair, and there was a vote. So I'm asking you, what was the vote then?
Clerk has that information if it exists.
Didn't vote.
Yeah.
We didn't do a vote.
Mayor, can I suggest we take a 5-minute recess?
That's what I tried to do.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
There a motion and a second? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it.
Roll call, Mayor. Roll call on the recess.
Roll call to recess.
Director Wyrick?
To go to recess.
I'm sorry? No. Director Compuris? Director Phillips?
Yes.
Director Adcock?
No.
Director Hendricks?
Yes.
Director Richardson?
Yes.
Director Webb?
Yes.
Director Peck?
Yes.
Director Wright? Vice Mayor Hines?
Yes.
Mayor, oh, no.
Recess. This meeting now back to order. Ms. Ally Washington.
Awesome. Good afternoon. My name is Alexandria Washington, known locally due to my profession in radio and television as Ally the Pub. And I've recently been appointed as a commissioner to Parks and Recreation, but above all, I am a concerned citizen and resident. I've had the privilege of having grown up in Central Arkansas, originally in Jacksonville, and upon moving back home after graduating from college at the University of Alabama in 2013 and making milestones in my career, I have made the decision to return and make Little Rock my home. Throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to live in multiple places, starting off in Birmingham, Alabama, to Atlanta, to Charlotte, Los Angeles, and most recently Detroit. And I now live in Ward 3 near War Memorial. I'm asking for you all to vote in favor of this tax proposal because the plan to redevelop War Memorial into a city park and community space is something that Little Rock needs desperately. Seeing that I've had the opportunity to live in all these different places, I know what Little Rock can be, and I believe that we can be just that and more. I'm super excited that we'll have dedicated funding to address affordable housing in our communities, to ensure that all parts of town have quality homes. And I also know that your vote allows me and other millennials, my friends, to decide what we want Little Rock to look like here and now and in the future. Unfortunately, I just received news from a friend of mine that I've had for 15 years. We've gone to high school together, grown up, and he's my best friend. And he's homegrown here in Little Rock and will be leaving to go to another place due to the lack of things that we have to offer here in Little Rock, and that's disheartening. And I believe that with your decision, we can change that for the better and be able to retain millennials like myself. Thank you guys so much for your time. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. Kearney Bryant, I apologize if I'm saying it incorrectly.
Mr. Mayor and the board, I'm here to, for an ordinance that I'm not sure if it's going to come before you all tonight, but it's for VFW 1316, and we're in the Paw Paw District. And we're asking if we could have our private club and our ABC.
Mayor, that item's on your agenda at the agenda meeting for next week.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Bryant, that's on the agenda meeting, and so next Tuesday, when we have our official board meeting,
Yes.
you'll have the opportunity to speak. So at this point, this is a special call meeting where.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, why was it not at this meeting? Just.
Yes, sir. I'm going to explain it for you. So right now, we're at a special call meeting, and we're taking up two specific ordinances and one resolution not pertaining to your order. Immediately following this meeting, we will then go into agenda meeting where the members of the city board and myself will discuss next week's agenda for the board meeting. And so at that board meeting, you can sign up to speak in favor or against your particular item. This happens to, it's a little, normally this meeting will immediately start with the agenda meeting. And at that point, we don't have citizens communication during the agenda meeting. We have it during an official board meeting. The official board meeting for today is only focusing on 3 items not pertaining to your item. Your item will be discussed next Tuesday at 6 o'clock.
We'll be here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Blake, if maybe answer any questions they may have just to make sure they understand. Jackie Smith.
Good evening, board members. Hendricks, good to see you in the house today.
Good to see you.
I'm actually I'm standing here because I am for the sales tax. And because number one, I know that it's gonna go, and I know that our mayor is gonna do right by it as far as allotting the funds to where there's allocating the funds to where they're supposed to go. But to be able to build up and kind of touching bases on what the young lady said, we have a lot of people that wants to move, which we shouldn't have to, because Little Rock has enough space, enough good people here that they shouldn't have to leave to go to Atlanta, Dallas, or anywhere else. They could be here. But we need to be able to put things for tourists, for us as well, in the city to be able to do, as far as not just with the kids, with the adults, with everybody, every lifestyle. So I'm actually for sales tax today, and I just don't have anything bad to say.
Thank you so much. Here, Camarion Williams. Mr. Williams?
How are y'all doing today?
Doing well.
My name is Kamarion Williams, and I'm 18 years old. And you guys view me as the issue. And, well, I'm here to reassure you that I'm not. Yeah. And I feel as if this $530 million could go to bettering the community. And I want to see, like, I want to know, like, how would that amount of money help me and my peers? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. Kristen Smith?
Good evening. My name is Kristen Smith, and I'm currently the Tobacco Prevention Coordinator at Brandon House Culture and Performing Arts Center. I took a look at this budget after my supervisor came to the meeting last week. I want to state that I am against it, and not necessarily for the reasons that the ladies before me said they were for it. I think that there are some line items that would greatly benefit our city. But my concern is with the vague nature of some of the listings, specifically what line items 9, 31, 32, 35, and 36, which allots over $27 million to funnel into downtown Little Rock. Specifically, there's a program that says that y'all are going to have $5.5 million for a ambassador program, people wearing bright colored jackets and downtown helping you take photos and walking you to your car, which I think is great in moderation. I think that some of the things these ambassadors will be looking for, you guys should be looking for below 630, south of 630, within the communities that Kamarion CJ spoke to. The kids, we talk about retention of the millennials. I think you need to think about how these funds can help to keep the youth that were born here, that are still here and don't have a choice to leave, how to better help them with their lives and give them the resources that they need so they don't feel like they have to leave to go to college or to do what might be traditional, but they know that the resources are right here in their city. And my biggest concern, like I said, is that it is vague in some of these line items with how that money will be allocated and distributed to community efforts to help those kids. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kristen. Dr. Patrice Bax?
Good afternoon. I appreciate an opportunity to speak. I'm Dr. Patrice Bax. I serve as Director of Programs at Brandon House Culture Performing Arts Center, and I'm also a commissioner for the Arts and Culture Commission for the City of Little Rock. Today was quite a spectacle, and I think last week kind of brought a lot of issues that we deal with in the city. And the Coalition of Little Rock Neighborhood President Kathy Wells kind of spilled out a lot of questions around this budget for the 1% tax use, which I'm for, but against some of the uses based on the line items outlined in this budget. So I have two questions. First, I wanted to know, after reviewing the budget, we're proposing $530 million over the course of 10 years. But we laid out a lot of issues last week. We had 5 people come to the mic, mourn over their loved ones, talk about how they don't have anything to do on the weekends. We cover gun violence, the need for conflict resolution, crime, and all of that. How is some of these line item budgets directly connected to how we're going to address those issues? That's question number 1. The second question is, I'm making the assumption that the Department of Community Programs is a part of this line item under neighborhood programs, although it's not listed. Can we expect that the contracted programs that are currently operating under $75,000 a year, are we expected for them to continue to operate with only $75,000, but increase in quality of program? I think to outline the fact that we have $530 million, but still have issues in our own community, not downtown, where we're putting $10 million towards parking decks and beautifying our spaces down here. But on the other side of 630, where Kamarion lives, where CJ lives, where Yasir lives, where the problems that you guys are pointing out, where they live, do we not have money more than the $5.5 million that we're given to, the Ambassador Safety Program downtown? Do we not have more money to put into the youth and the programs that are actually working? We have things that actually work. We talked about conflict resolution. We do that every day with our kids, believe it or not. There are things that we're doing right now that's working in the city. Can we not funnel a nice percentage of $530 million over the course of 10 years to these youth programs? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bax. Ms. Kathy Wells.
Good afternoon, Mayor Scott, members of the City Board, citizens. I'm sure glad we've got folks here taking part and debating. It's always heartening to see democracy function as it should be, even a little messy sometime. I am Kathy Wells. I'm here as president of the Coalition of Little Rock Neighborhoods. I myself live downtown. My home ground is the Downtown Neighborhood Association. I'd simply like to repeat what was in a letter that we did send. Please delay calling this election. Please get more information out and detailed so that we understand the specifics better. And please, on the ballot itself, on calling this election with the for and against lines that are in the text before you today, add specifics. The resolution that describes intents for spending are not legally binding. Your own city attorney can clarify that for anyone who has a question. The only thing that this election would call for is 1 cent sales tax, period. There would be no allocation, legally binding, and any subsequent board, any subsequent meeting of this board, in the event of passage, could revise the spending plan completely and legally. We need to be much more careful about what we're spending our money on. We need to know much more about what we're spending our money on. And I'm gratified at some answers that have come my way asking for details the last couple of days. But I'm still curious about where the location would be for that indoor sports complex and that 15-acre park downtown. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We do have one email from State Representative Joy Springer. Dear Mayor Scott and members of the Board of Directors, Joy Springer, Little Rock resident and State Representative. My statement is very short and to the point. I apologize for the delay in forwarding the statement to you. I understand that the board will vote on Mayor Scott's rebuild the Little Rock sales tax proposal this evening. When Mayor Scott introduced this proposal several months ago, I was of the opinion that it was well thought out and provided supporting data for it to move forward. It is my hope that you will support growth and progress for the city of Little Rock, for the entire city of Little Rock. I therefore respectfully request that you vote yes to the Rebuild the Rock sales tax proposal In doing so, your vote will be an investment for all citizens of Little Rock being represented by each of you. Sincerely, Joy Springer. Madam Clerk, are there any more emails?
No, sir.
Mayor, I think Director Wells want to be recognized.
Director Webb?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a motion to lay item 1 on the table till the July 13th meeting and to establish the legitimate intent for this motion. And I will come back after this motion, perhaps to lay item 2 and 3 on the table.
Second.
And I have the right to establish the legitimate intent and want to avoid the confusion that we had before. So if I can just go ahead and do that.
Need to take that mask.
If I can go ahead and do that, then hopefully it will be clear and we won't have the confusion that we had a few minutes ago. So as I've said before, I applaud the desire to be bold. I think we all agree we want Little Rock to be a greater city, a world-class city, and we all ran on that in our campaign, aspirational goals to be a great city. We want to show our residents that we do the basics well, but we also want to be great. 60 days, July 13th, approximately 60 days, gives us the time to come together and to move forward together. First, there are $37.5 million coming our way starting later this month and going until next year. We've started to get the guidance on that. And next week, we will get even more guidance. I was on a call last week. I was on a call yesterday. There's a call tomorrow and Thursday about how cities should be making their plans. One of the calls tomorrow will discuss how cities can get even more funds to use for homelessness, which we already know can be used for services as well as to purchase property like hotels to use for housing. And as one of 2 cities in the United States in the Vanguard Cities program, it seems like we would be a perfect candidate for those additional funds. Pulaski County's getting $78 million, North Little Rock, $17 million. Entities have been encouraged to work together to leverage funds for major projects. Second, many have said that a continuation of the current tax should be a greater part of the conversation. A pause gives us more time to garner feedback about that specific point. And we've accomplished a lot with that money over the last decade. Third, my constituents have told me that they want us to fill in the details. I've been on different calls and heard different things about what the plans are with, for example, money that's earmarked for homelessness. Constituents want specifics, and I want to give them specifics because it's in knowing those specifics that we learn what makes the most sense, whether it's parks, public safety, education, whatever the issue. That's how we know what makes the most sense. Fourth, constituents have said that they want more discussion about a sunset. Did we deliver what we said we'd do with the last tax? If we're showing a commitment to do better and fix the basics, my constituents are telling me that they'll vote to approve a potentially transformative plan. No one will agree with every dollar. And while there's still economic uncertainty as we emerge from the pandemic, we can move towards being the city we all want to be, that we all believe we can be. Tonight is not an either or. We can get to yes. And I think if we do, I think our residents win big. Let's table, address the points that I made, address the points that the coalition of neighborhoods and others have made, some of the speakers tonight, and then work as a unified group to get it passed.
Second to the motion, Mayor.
Parliamentarians shared by bringing up the coalition of Little Rock neighborhoods. It kind of went far past the motion and more into a speech and to allow for discussion. And restate what you shared.
What I said is that the motion to lay on the table is not to be dilatory. If a person needs to explain the reasons as they're making the motion to show that it's not dilatory, that's proper. When we started getting into what others had said about this as opposed to why the motion was being made by the mover, started going afield and ended then.
Thank you. Director Phillips.
This is not a debatable motion, Mayor.
It's not a debate motion. All right, there's a motion.
Second.
Point a question for the parliamentarian, Mayor. I'm sorry, Mr. Parliamentarian. I thought you said that I thought you just said that we could discuss it because it brought up reasons outside of the motion.
No, what I said is that bringing up the
Please talk into
coalition.
your microphone.
What I said is that bringing up the coalition was going beyond the justification of why the movement made the motion. And had she been called down, that would have had to been affirmed. That doesn't make the motion debatable.
Okay, I understand.
The motion is simply to lay this item on the table until the meeting of July 13th.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Parliamentarian.
There's a motion and a second to table. I do want to share to members of the board, this vote is to allow the people of Little Rock to vote. We've heard there.
Point of order, Mayor, this is debate.
Director Himes, I'm still speaking as the chair and I will continue to speak.
Point of order, Mayor.
I will still continue to speak. You can keep saying that, but I'm going to finish my sentence. So I'm going to continue to ask the members of the board to understand that this is to give a vote of the people of Little Rock to vote, not the members of the city board. We've continued to share information. Quite frankly, these ordinances mirror the ordinances 10 years ago. Literally mirror the ordinances 10 years ago, except for without a sunset. Outside of that, items 1 and 2 mirror the ordinances from 10 years ago. The resolution is essentially the same resolution that lays out the percentages and the specifics. The difference between this, as we all understand that a resolution is not legally binding, but it does give us the transparency and the accountability of the will of the people. This particular resolution shares all the percentages of funding along with a appendix of where the funding goes based on spreadsheet. Only difference between this ordinance and this resolution and what happened 10 years ago, literally the spreadsheet from 10 years ago was transposed into writing and we just put it together with the resolution. Same specifics. Those who are sharing that it is not specific enough when it gives more information than it did 10 years ago, that quite frankly is not true. So please stop sharing misinformation because this mirrors exactly 10 years ago. My question is, what has changed 10 years ago? This money gives more money to public safety, close to $80 million on top of another $82 million that we give in the general fund for the Little Rock Police Department. We already give to the Little Rock Fire Department close to $53 million. We give another $40 million to it. More money to public safety, more money to public infrastructure goes to this particular tax, more than we did 10 years ago. This particular tax, we have not invested in our parks since I was a young kid in Southwest Little Rock. And so for those who are not aware, we have 62 parks in the city of Little Rock, from Interstate Park to Union Park to even Junior Deputy that we take hold and pay for. Has not received funding. Director Computer has been someone that he advocated for, that he wanted to increase parks funding because he understands it has not been funded in close to 30 years. For those who understand our budget line item, it remains $12 to $13 million towards parks. We have not kept up with inflation in more than 30 years. So it's an equitable lens because we increase it from 13 million to 17 million. For those to understand what's going on with the Neighborhood Empowerment Program, There's certain thing called a right avenue action plan that was never funded. The Neighborhood Power and Capacity Fund gives those particular neighborhoods the ability to fund those programs, just like West Central has a master plan that has not been fully funded. That's what those dollars go towards. And again, as we shared, every board member has received this plan for several months. My question is, what's changed in 10 years when we got the exact same ordinances with more information and more funding? Again, it's for the people of Little Rock to vote, not for the city board.
Can we entertain a motion now, Mayor?
Yes, we can, Director Richardson.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. Can we have a vote on that, please, sir?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Mayor.
There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it.
Can we have a roll call, Mayor?
Those are roll call.
Director Wyrick. Director Compuris. Director Phillips.
No.
Director Adcock.
Aye.
Director Hendricks.
No.
Director Richardson.
Yes.
Director Webb.
Yes.
Director Peck.
Yes.
Director Wright.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hines.
Yes.
With that being said, there's no reason to go to item number 2 and 3. And we will decide if we bring it back up on July 13th.
Motion to adjourn, Mayor.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We'll now move forward to our agenda meeting. Board members, are there any questions for items 1 through 8 on the consent agenda? Any questions on items 1 through 8 on the consent agenda? Any questions on items 1 through 8 on the consent agenda?
Yes, sir. Mayor, I'm sorry. Let me break it. I had a question about item number 1 on the consent agenda. I guess that would be from Mr. Collins.
Director Phillips, this just sets the date for this item, so it won't be on your next agenda. This will actually be on the June 1st agenda.
Right. Do we know the vote? That's what I wanted to know. The vote, because I understand that it was denied at the planning commission level. And that's what I was trying to figure out. If we don't have that information, if someone can get it to me, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Mayor, my hand's up.
Sorry, Director Wright.
Resolution number 2, Mr. Moore. I see that ADA sidewalks are going to be put in at Rebsamen, but it said and other improvements. What are the other improvements?
They're all related to ADA, but we'll get you the specifics.
Thank you.
Any
Please.
questions, on items 9 through 15?
Item 10 and 11.
Item 10 and 11.
Yes.
Would you like a presentation or would you have a question?
Yes, a presentation, please.
Mr. Collins?
If we could bring up I guess for the land use, let's bring up the land use map because both these are tied together. That one's kind of hard to see, but the piece of property that we're looking at is at that northwest corner of the intersection of Scott Hamilton and I-30. Currently what that is that's underneath right now as a planned industrial development on there. And so what they're looking for is they want to request land use plan amendment from industrial to commercial. So they're looking to parcel off about a 7-acre site right there in that corridor for a commercial use. So if we could switch to item 11, that Z9563, because that goes for and aligns what the land use request is. for that plan for the rezoning. So what they're looking to do on that location for item 11 is to change that to align with the use for what they're going to do for the semi-trailers and for a truck stop and plaza for that area. And so if you look at the location of there where Scott Templeton comes in, and also some of the adjacent uses of the land around that, that is not an uncommon use for that area for that type of commercial use on the zoning. It went before the planning commission. There was no individuals registered either in support or opposition. The vote of the planning commission was 9-4 and 1 abstention. So with any other questions you may have?
No, that answers what my question. Thank you.
Mayor.
Thumbs up.
Director Wright.
Item 14, and Mr. Carr, Jamie, I forgot your name, Mr. Collins, okay. If I remember correctly, this business entity made contact in early 2019, and COVID hit, because I know they were meeting with the neighborhood. I believe this is the same one that's moving from North Little Rock.
Yes, ma'am. This is the same one. What they had originally done, I don't know the exact location that they're coming from, was they was looking to put that automotive, sales and minor repairs out there for more or less for display for what they're doing. And one of the concerns that was raised by us was the residential that is just to the north. And so, so that did get postponed for that reason that we're talking about. And so they did come back. If we can bring up a site sketch for that location, that'll give you an idea of what they're looking for. If you look at they really highlighted some of the landscaping they're looking to put in. One of the things I want to emphasize is there is a tract of land that's on the north that's just adjacent to Ludwig. You'll see it kind of shaded. It's a lighter green than the darker green. That's a tract of land that they have that is not going to be developed. They remain that undeveloped, which gives an additional buffer to that residential area for that location. But if you're looking at just the location of where this property is, if we could open up the zoning map to the other areas for zoning. As far as a commercial use, if you'll we can zoom into some of that area, you can see that area along the roadway there has been going for commercial use, along that road. We were a little bit on the fence for a C4 open display for the sales, but if you look through that that corridor of roadway, that has happened periodically through that. So with the addition of that buffer area that they put in, we felt like the site plan they proposed was a fit for the area for that C4.
Okay, this has been so long ago, but I do recall talking with the prospective business owner, because my concern at that time had been the quality of used automobiles, because we've had prospective automotive sales that were less than desirable. And I believe they assured me that this wasn't that. And I went over to North Little Rock and I took a look, and I think that I recall, but my question to you is, will they be in attendance next week, or can you get me some kind of visual of what the facades will look like and some type of statement or assurances or whatever you all need as to the quality of the vehicles?
I will reach out to them, and they will be here for the meeting. For the other items you requested, I will reach out to them. I do not know if condition of vehicle in an auto sales can be a condition placed on a rezoning per se. That's something that's not within our zoning categories. It's just vehicle sales type scenario. Even with used cars, we're not saying the level of used cars or the looks of the used cars.
And that was my
So
concern.
I will reach out and get something from them. I do not know, and that would be something that the city attorney's office would have to opine on. I do not believe that can be a condition set on a rezoning.
Well, I remember
But
a
it's
few
something
years
that they could
back.
present to you and we could talk to them about. but I don't know if we could set it as a condition.
Well, I remember a few years back that we had one come forward and wanted to buy red cars and put it in that intersection right there where the tire shop is. And the neighborhood just went ballistic.
Yeah, the only stipulation that we could put for that type of deal is just where they are located, visually, whether they are being repaired, how they're repaired, location of repair, and whether they sit inoperable for a time, even on a car lot. Those, as far as the aesthetic of zoning, can be looked at, but, the level of a used car, I do not believe that's in the zoning code.
Okay, I have another situation I'm gonna talk to you about where they've been sitting for a while. And that'll give you a visual of what my concern is. And it's off of 36th Street next to a
Okay, yes, ma'am.
residential area, but it was grandfathered in and we've not been able to do anything with it, but I'll get with you on that. But that was my only concern, the visuals. And I know that needs to be commercial. I don't have any issue with that. It's just that I don't want to see a lot of junk wrecked cars parked there like I already got. Thank you.
Who's next on the?
My hand is
I'm
up.
sorry, I'm out of, I can't. Coming back, Mayor.
My hand's up also.
Director Peck.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor. Jamie, are we, I'm sorry, Doris, were you finished?
Yeah, I'll get with him later on my concern.
Okay, thank
But
you.
I think they assured me that this wasn't that.
Oh, okay, thank you. Jamie, number 13, could I have a brief presentation?
Yes, ma'am. If we could bring up the zoning map for that, that'll kind of show the area of it. As you can see, Director Peck, in your ward, this is on Rodney Parham, just a little bit east of where the interchange is for I-430. The property existing right now currently contains one single-family home. And the driveway associated with that. The current zoning of that property is O3. And just south of that, across the creek, is a residential development that in the past, some of the residents has expressed concerns on the type of development that happens on that tract of land. What the owner is proposing is what we would consider a conceptual plan development. So they are proposing specifically a list of some C3 uses extracted from the approved or the by right use in the C3, and also including a C4 use of a car wash. And so they are going to comply with the minimum standards on on-site parking, landscaping, and also buffer. And then they have committed to increasing the rear buffer to be 125 feet from the rear property line. So that would increase the buffer along that adjacent residential property. So this is separated by that creek for there. And when you're out there, especially in this time of, well, not now, the leaves are back in, but when I drove it and looked at the property, when I was looking at coming through in the planning commission, you can see across the creek in certain locations of that, but in times of the year, that buffer will be green and planted, and we will seek also landscaping more at a mid-level evergreen type scenario that would also screen some of that, any development from the residential side of it.
Okay, thank you.
Director Wyrick, did you have a question?
I'll be really quick. I want to hold, Joan asked the questions on 10 and 11. I want to hold those separate. I've heard from a couple of neighborhood folks about that, and I'm just not sure that they've bought into that C4 application there. So I'd like to give them an opportunity to speak on it if they choose to do so.
Thank you so much. We'll hold 10 and 11.
Thank you.
Director Adcock, did you still have your hand?
I've got item number 16. Jamie, is this a city building? It says Neighborhood Resource Center down here in the synopsis. And it says a temporary lodging facility. So we have a Neighborhood Resource Center right there in the Hinton Center. So are we building another neighborhood resource center, or can you explain what that is?
That is not a resource center by us. That is not a city-affiliated resource center. That would be a community resource center that is private in nature. Specifically for the people that would be staying at that development as presented by the applicant. They are looking, I believe, if I pull up the number that they're looking to put in there. There were 12 residents that was also going to be at that location. For that, they want the residents to range in age from 18 to 23. And so that the community resource center will just be open. It says be open to the public, but that is a private endeavor.
Okay, what type of residents will be living there?
Well, they looked at to do just to assist, when they're saying there, the write-up notes the residents will range in age from 18 to 23, share commonalities such as high school diploma, college-age students, startup entrepreneurs, and reentry with a typical stay from 1 to 7 days.
Is it like a reentry or a,
They did not specifically say that this is a reentry program.
and it's not connected with Children's Hospital since it's right there between Children's and the Med Center?
No, ma'am, this was a private.
Okay, I would like more information on that, please. I notice it's already separate. Can you tell me why staff is recommending denial?
We had recommended now just for the intensity of the development that was on there, just for coverage of building square footage on there, and also the uses, since there was specifically 2 proposed, which was the stay of the temporary facilities for residential and also the community resource centers for what they're doing. Felt that was a little bit too intense for the lot that was going to be on there. And then even though the existing building that was there, which is dilapidated, was a former barber shop and essentially was legally non-conforming for what the zoning was, it was more construed to be a C1 or would be a neighborhood commercial type development. And we felt that just for the intensity and the location and the setback issues, that the residential property just to the west, albeit vacant at this moment, and to the north would be impacted for this. And not that some type of neighborhood use can be proposed, but just the intensity level of that.
Okay, thank you.
Director Hendricks, then Director Richardson.
Yes, okay, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Jamie, this is 16 that we're talking about.
Yes, ma'am.
I support this ordinance. I visited with the contractor several months ago, so this is nothing new to me. I'm familiar with the site, the location, and I think it's going to bid well for the community. I see we had a lot of support for this, so I don't want you tinkering with it, okay? Thank you.
All right. Any more questions from items 17 to 20?
Just one other one, Mayor.
All right.
Jamie, in terms of proximity, how close is this to that Children's Hospital Community Garden?
I'll have to get that and send that back to you. I know the exact distance.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions for 21 and 22?
19, please.
Oh, sorry, 19?
Jamie, item number 19.
Yes, ma'am. I don't know that I presented this item.
Okay.
The city attorney's office.
Mr. Carpenter?
Mr. Carpenter?
Director Hickok, the members of the VFW Post were told that they needed to get a city ordinance to approve this. The area is in the Capital Zoning Commission, so as to use matters, that's really a question for the Capital Zoning Commission. but our last contacts with ABC were, no, they just need a city ordinance, and I think that's probably focusing upon the private club aspect. This is not a new facility to be located there. This is one that has been there, and the permit lapsed for time, and so it started a new process. We're trying to get clarification from ABC on that issue.
I know that that's a very active neighborhood association in there. Was the neighborhood association notified of this?
With the issue was brought to us, and we told the VFW, you know, this is who you got to talk to about your permit. And
Okay, and then can you explain item number 20 to us?
20 which?
20, item number 20. To
20.
clarify when
Oh.
a child must have an adult take them to the restroom.
The current ordinance talks about the gender of the child if they're under the age of 6. It simply says,
Okay.
the current ordinance discusses the gender of the child if they're 6 years of age or under. This simply says that a child 6 years of age or under may be accompanied by an adult who is a parent or guardian to the restroom in a park.
And so why are we looking at this?
I think that making it gender neutral is consistent with our ordinances and assures that we're not trying to do something that would violate any recent actions of the legislature.
Okay. Was this requested by Parks and Recreation or?
Thank you.
It was brought to our attention and we looked into it and saw what was there. And unfortunately, I remembered having to help a female relative once when nobody else was around, and so I just took her into the men's room. He was maybe a year.
Okay, thank you.
Director Phillips?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make sure I had an opportunity to speak before we adjourn. So I just want to put that in front of you, Mayor, before we adjourn for the policy meeting.
Unless there's any other questions, we do have Director Hendricks.
About to say, am I ready? Mayor?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I wanted to really speak with regard to the motion that we passed, and I appreciate that. But I want to share with the public the election that was held in 2011, and it was passed by the voters. I have in my hand several discs of every meeting that took place in 2011 when a tax was passed by the people. And I'm hoping, and I brought this forth because I'm hoping that the general public will adhere to an election that will be held. And if anybody wants to review any of this, I have it in my hand. I'm from the old school. I don't throw away much. But 10 years ago, it was a tax that was passed. It was 3/8%, and the citizens approved it, and that was on the 13th of August. So I will tell everybody, you know, we can sit up here and argue all we want to, but let the voters decide. And that's what I'm asking, is that the voters will do as the citizens did in August. It was August the 13th, 2021. So Kathy, it seems that what you're doing concurs with what happened several years ago. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Director Hendricks. Director Phillips?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make sure that it's clear my opinion and position to the people of Little Rock, and want to address you and my colleagues. And I'm going to say this humbly, no, respectfully, that there was a discussion today to prevent us from even hearing from you today. Somebody got up and described it, I wrote it down, as a spectacle. Someone else said it's messy. To hear from you today, I want that to sink in. We put on a spectacle because we didn't want to hear from you today. We have voted today to not hear from you on July 13th either. That was the vote today. We don't want to hear from you. That's how I've interpreted it. And if this text, if my colleagues don't support this version of the text, as I said in a letter that I penned last week, and I've said publicly for many weeks, vote no. If you're against it, vote no. I don't see why we're delaying it. I mean, people have elected us to do a job, which includes speaking, which includes voting. So we should have voted. And I want the people of Little Rock to know that it was my position to vote because I wanted you to decide. It was my position today to hear from you because I want you to speak. So I just want to make that clear. I want that to be in the record. I want my colleagues to hear me clearly, and respectfully that if your vote was no, vote no. And I want the people to know that we decided not to hear from you today. Thank you, Mayor.
Director Peck.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't think, well, first of all, I hate that it's been a spectacle, truly. I think what we were saying collectively, and Kathy, thank you for your words, is that we don't oppose putting this on the ballot. We want to hear from people. But what I'm hearing daily, and I think most of us are, is that the citizens want more detail. That we all want it to be on the ballot, but it needs to be crystal clear. I think there needs to be more citizen communication. Many concerns have been brought up. Anytime I get an email, I forward it to all my colleagues and to the mayor so you can see what other people are thinking. It's not that we don't want an election. We want a crystal clear issue on the ballot with all of the questions answered so people know what they're voting for. I mean, we all want to rebuild Little Rock. It's certainly not that I don't want to put it on the ballot, that I'm opposed to it. We need to collaborate. We need to listen to the citizens. We've got 60 days to do so. And I really hope that we can all communicate and work on this together. Thank you.
Director Phillips has his hands raised.
Yeah, I just want to respond, and Director Peck is right. We have heard from people that have expressed both support and disapproval. But as I told people who reached out to me, if you disapprove of the tax, you get to go vote and say no. I mean, if you're a person in Little Rock and you say, I don't think this is right for Little Rock, this is a democracy. You get to go press a button and say, no, I don't think this is right. And we are avoiding that opportunity by delaying this. And the other reason why there have been a lot of questions, and this was in the news media over the weekend, is that, there's been misinformation. And directly, my colleague, Director Hines, has indicated that this tax defunds the police. So of course, people are going to ask questions when they get misinformation. Director Hines said defund the police and referred to them, whoever them is. I would love to know who them is that he was referring to. But if we can't be honest about what's in front of the people and getting the opportunity to vote, I think that's disingenuous. And I'm with you, Director Peck. I want us to work together. But we got to be real. We got to keep it 100 here in this boardroom and when we talking to people. And if we're not doing that, then of course our citizens are going to be confused. But at the end of the day, this is a democracy, and people should have an opportunity to vote. Thank you.
Director Hines, you had your hand. Did you?
No comment, Mayor.
All right. Director Hendricks, did you?
What I'm about to say may be offensive to a lot of people, but I do not want it to appear that it's a racial issue up here at this board. No, I haven't been here in over a year, and I don't ever fear saying what I feel is best for the public. So it just seems we've had a lot of turmoil at this board, and I said to myself, it's time for me to go to the board meeting and express myself. And I would love to see us work together as human beings, take away the attitude or racial attitude. You know, I can read, I represented this organization for 50 years, and I will not stop talking. We need to work together. I've been on this board 11 years, I think, and then I was on this board in 1974. And I have never seen as much racial strife on this board as I have witnessed in the past year. And my daughter is giving me the signal to be quiet, but she knows better than that. So people hear me vote, whatever date we're going to come up with. I just hate that we have deferred the time. Again, be people, do what you're supposed to do, support this board. Because, you know, just take a look, we don't have a majority up here. But I guarantee you, before the year is over, this board makeup will change from the at-large positions. Thank you.
I'm just going to make a few comments, and board members, Director Webb, did you raise your hand? Director Webb.
Thank you. I just want to make one quick point in response to some of the comments people have made about we've had a couple of months to discuss this or whatever. And I think that those of us at the table and some of the people who come to board meetings, we think about public policy, we think about issues, pretty much all the time. And there are a lot of folks I've heard from in the last 2 or 3 days. I talked to a guy today who said, I've never called an elected official before. And he was almost like anxious that he was doing this for the first time. And I've talked to several folks over the last few days who said, you know, I haven't thought about it yet. This is, you know, I'm just now thinking about it. So while we're super engaged in this and have been thinking about it, not everybody has been thinking about it as much as we have. And I've been so gratified that I've heard from so many people over the last few days. And to Director Hendricks's point about working together, I mean, the comments I've gotten, whether I've agreed with them or not, I've just been so happy to get the comments. And I want us to work together. I want to get to yes. And I think that this input is good. I wasn't here a decade ago. I'm glad for the input, and I want to have a lot more input from folks who haven't talked, who haven't given input from before. It's a good thing, and I've been trying to respond to my emails, and if anybody's watching and I haven't responded yet, I'm going to catch up. I'll get those emails answered, but it's good. The input is good. Thank you.
And Director Webb, you're right, the input is good. But this board, again, this is disappointing because we have not been discussing this since March 25th. We've been discussing this since January 1, 2020, when we met with every board member because we knew the need to make this type of investment. None of us could have predicted a pandemic, so we appropriately suspended. In the course of the past 30 months, there has been a citizen-led commission and/or task force to address every portion of this tax. Director Webb, you were on the R3 Little Rock Parks Task Force, did community walks. That was for close to a year, even in the start and middle of the pandemic as well. You're on the Zoo Board of Governors. Director Peck has been a part of it. Director Compuris has been a part of it. Every member of this board has been engaged in this process throughout the entire time. There have been countless community meetings, countless task force that have built this plan. So to share and say that there hasn't been any community input, that's just not true. We can't control that there are aspects of this tax that you may or may not disagree with. We all know, because we met with each of you individually to get your feedback, and we made constant tweaks, so much so that it does more than we did 10 years ago. That's just the facts. Anytime you do an ordinance for a sales tax, it will always be general. If you go back and look at the last 10, they're general. Do you call election or you not? Do you levy a tax or you don't?
The resolution has always been meant for a transparency standpoint for the community, which we have. Every line item has been detailed, is on the website, has been presented to this board on multiple occasions, and every question that this board has asked has been answered. Every one. We can take another 60 days. The plan is the plan. The board has to vote on whether or not it allows it goes to the people. Plain and simple. And we want to continue to have more input. And we will take the next 60 days to have more input and to be as collaborative as possible. But at the end of the day, we have to allow the people to vote. Otherwise, there are financial realities. 38-cent sales tax is rolling off December 31st. This administration has cut this budget close to $20 million in 30 months. We are making sure that we're being good fiscal stewards, but we need more investment so we can invest not only in our youth, but our entire city. So please, share facts, not misinformation. This is vitally important for our entire city. From College Station to Chenal Valley, it impacts everyone. And we as a board have to work together. That's how we unite, grow, and transform. It starts with us. And so I'm asking board members to speak up in board meetings, to answer phone calls, to be responsive. Because I've asked each of you for information, and you turn a blind eye. It starts with the leaders. That's how it happens. We got to be willing to communicate with each other. That's how it moves forward. So I'm asking, if we're going to delay this for 60 days, which has happened, everyone has to be receptive to have community input, collaboration, and coordination. If you don't want to, just vote no. We can't keep delaying it. Because now, we, as a special election standpoint, our time is running out. The legislature has changed certain things. And you got to understand those realities as well. So I implore each member to deal honestly and appropriately in a collaborative manner to ensure that we do what's best for the people of Little Rock. Not what's best for each of us individually, but for the people of Little Rock. When we discuss unifying our city, that doesn't mean singing a Kumbaya song. What that means is we address things appropriately, authentically, and together. And sometimes, yes, the truth hurts. But the only way to move forward is to address the truth and to move forward together. So we ask that everyone work together. That's what it's about for the people of Little Rock, not our individual wards or at-large seats. It is about the people of Little Rock because those people are our bosses. This meeting has been adjourned. We'll now move forward to our policy agenda for target community development. Mr. Moore, could you help us with that process? I know you've been working a lot with that.
I believe it was 2 weeks ago, we handed out a document and we have that ready to go through. But that said, I know there was a request by directors Phillips and Wright and Richardson and Hendricks to have a discussion. So I would just sort of turn it over to you all if you have some thoughts or questions. I know the mayor's talked about the committee or the working group, and so we can go through and the only thing we did, we asked a few of the departments to just examine what we've done and some of the.
Mr. Moore, if we do need to kind of wait another week on, that's fine too, I think. And if
I'm fine.
Just to make sure, but before, want to see, is that something we would entertain? If not, that's fine too. I know.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
all I need to know is when will the working group be established? And when will the next meeting be? What are their uh, guidance? Has any of that been developed? Or would you prefer that, has Mr. Moore done that, or would you prefer that as the author,
Yes, ma'am.
I pull the information out and submit it? I just want the working group to get to work.
So I would make this commitment and definitely want to hear from other sponsors. I do know, I've heard from you, Director Wright and Director Wyrick and been in consultation on the appointments for that task force. I need to revisit with Director Richardson on the appointment to make sure of his appointment. I believe that's wards 1, 2, 6, and 7. And so I think what we can commit, we can make the announcement early next week on those individuals. And then what may be good is to have those individuals in place and then have a policy agenda meeting with them there at our first agenda meeting, our next agenda meeting. And then we can kind of talk through those specifics, and so have them there because would be a good education on what's existing happening. Would that be favorable to you, Director Wright?
That would be fine.
Well,
I
Mayor,
just
I'm
want to
sorry.
get to work.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
I think your point and Mrs. Moore's support of it, I think it's appropriate, and that I think we need to finalize the conceptual framework of that initiative. And once we do that, I think we're better able to recruit members from the community to serve as advisory committee. I think that there are some I's that need to be dotted, some T's that need to be crossed in terms of how do we put this in a way that it doesn't appear to some of my colleagues that we're playing ward politics, that it's something that's addressing the most, the neediest part of our community, the community that's suffering from a disproportionate number of marginalized children, youth, and families, disproportionate number of vacant, unsafe homes, disproportionate number of homes on the demolition list. So I think from that standpoint, Mr. Barron, unless some of my co-sponsors disagree, I think your point to Mr. Moore is well taken, that we kind of put this off for a week or so we can really, really finalize the conceptual framework.
All right. Director Phillips, I know you were a sponsor as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. My request or my question is, have we identified any funding that could be used for these targeted community development projects? Obviously, I know that there was a line item in our Rebuild the Rock proposal, but obviously that's been deferred. So has there been any money identified for this working group to look at so they can make recommendations?
No, sir. The funding that was identified was $5 million in the Rebuild the Rock sales tax proposal. I think what Mr. Moore was shares that there is funding that has been used over the years that equates to that. But as I understand, both you, Director Phillips, Richardson, Wyrick, Hendricks, and Wright, you would like to see new funding in the present versus in the past identified. At this time, due to budget constraints of the existing budget that we're in, we do not have 5 million identified. One of the things that Mr. Moore and I will provide a recommendation list to discuss with the members of the board on the American Rescue Plan dollars. We do have the guidance on that. We plan to bring forth those recommendations here shortly on what to spend. Of course, with anything, the board has to have final approval on those spending. We'll provide those recommendations for the board to consider based on the compliance of what's allowed for it. But since we'll need to make some decisions, we can't wait 60 days to make some decisions on the American Rescue Plan. And so as we've made a commitment as best as possible with the resolution, is to identify dollars within the American Rescue Plan for target community development, since it doesn't look like we'll be considering the sales tax proposal to have that forward. But again, that would only be for one-time funding, whereas within the Rebuild the Rock sales tax proposal, that was ongoing funding.
Mayor, quick follow-up, if you don't mind, Director Wright. Can I ask a quick follow-up? You mentioned that we hadn't identified 5 million, so we hadn't identified anything at this point because of the budget constraints. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Director Wright.
Director Wright.
The only reason I want the working group to go ahead and be established is that I have been approached with verbal commitments from the business community to work with me on various initiatives that we've discussed for a number of years. And now that we have a formal framework to work through, as a matter of fact, I'm having a meeting Thursday with an individual that's coming out to look at the area that I'm working on. And there are grant opportunities that I want to go after for our outdoor learning center projects and things like that. That's why I wanted the working group. Now, I can just proceed as I have been and just proceed with applying for opportunities and establishing it on my own, but I prefer to work through the working group. But if you all are not going to establish it, that's okay too. I just need to know, because I was waiting on that, because I know I've submitted the person that I wanted. That's the only reason I wanted the working group to be
Yes, ma'am.
established.
We just got to
Because
have,
this is a public-private thing. We're not going to be able to put all the money that we need, and I need the private sector to be engaged, and they have come to the table.
yes, ma'am. We just got to get the other board members on that to have a complete task force. And so we'll get back with the other directors and follow up. As always, if there's opportunity, we want to recognize our state legislative members who've been great partners with us in the legislative process and just completed one, a long one. Senator Joyce Elliott, you would like to make any comments? All right, thank you. I'd like to always recognize our legislative partners. With that, Director Phillips?
I was gonna move to adjourn, Mayor.
Oh, it's a policy meeting. Meeting adjourned.